Welcome to HBCU Her Voice, a place where we celebrate the powerful voices and stories of remarkable women from historically Black colleges and universities. I'm your host, Shaté Washington, a proud HBCU graduate myself. I'm thrilled to bring you this platform dedicated to amplifying the voice of our community. We dive into inspiring stories of resilience, success, and the incredible impact these women are making in the world. From trailblazing entrepreneurs to innovative leaders, we bring you the stories that matter, showcasing how HBCU experiences shape paths and fuel passions. We'll explore challenges, victories, and wisdom. Whether you're an HBCU alum, a student, faculty member, supporter, or simply someone who believes in the power of diverse voices, we are so glad to have you. So listen up as we share insights, celebrate achievements, and uplift our community. Together, we can inspire the next generation of leaders and ensure our voices are heard loud and clear. A grand welcome to HBCU Her Voice. And just like that, we're back with another amazing episode of HBCU Her Voice. And y'all, I had some hurdles getting here today, but y'all know what? It tells me that it's worth it. And I'm so honored that this lady is here today. Y'all know the drill. I am your fabulous host, Shaté Washington, streaming from the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And our guests come here, they tell us their name, where they're streaming from, which HBCU they're repping. And guess what? We get to hear their story. And I've already heard a snippet of this lady's story, and I'm already ready to dig in. So let's bring her to the stage so she can do just those things.
Hello, Shané and HBCU Her Voice listeners. I am Shaté Hayes, originally from Houston, Texas, where I am at this very moment visiting family, but I live in the Atlanta area, and I am a proud alumna of Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm really excited to be sharing my story with you today. And I'll start at the beginning for me in terms of my career. In my first career, I was a professional dancer, choreographer, and dance educator. And I have been performing my entire life. So I started dance at a very early age, 3 or 4, did competitive dance all my life, always performed. I was a cheerleader, I was on drill teams. I was just always moving, and I never really knew I could have a career in it. So I didn't grow up with cable. You know, when I was a dancer, I would hear stories from other dancers, like when I saw Michael Jackson's Remember the Time video, or when I saw Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation video, I just knew I wanted to be a dancer. And I didn't have those stories because I wasn't exposed to that. We didn't have cable. And when I was growing up and doing competitive dance and performing as a teenager, I was exposed to like Alvin Ailey and professional ballet companies through the Nutcracker. And it was always interesting to me, but it never really spoke to me. But what did speak to me was In Living Color Fly Girls. I've always wanted to be a fly girl in A Living Color. I still want to be a fly girl on A Living Color. And I just still never knew that that could be a career. And so fast forward, I go to college in Atlanta, and my family says to me, my mom says, don't major in dance, pick something else. And so I honestly didn't know what else to choose. I ended up majoring in psychology, which was a blessing. I learned a lot. The research was really helpful in terms of what I went on to do eventually. But I just always performed even in school. And so I cheered for Morehouse all 4 years. I was on step teams. I was just always still performing. So when I graduated, I said to myself, I want to enjoy my career. I want to love what I'm doing. If I'm going to spend 8, 9, 10 plus hours per day doing a job, I want to love that job. I don't want to just tolerate it. And so at the time, performing was still very much my passion. And so I said, you know what? I'm moving to LA. I'm going to be a professional dancer. And no one in my family knew what that meant or how to help me. And it was a big blowout. But once they saw how dedicated I was and how much of a plan I had, they really got on board and supported me. And so I went there, I got an agent. And 12 years later, I just had a career that I was super blessed by and fortunate to have. I performed all over the country, worked overseas in Shanghai. I choreographed a ton of theater, for Black theater specifically. I love shows that I've choreographed, like The Color Purple or Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope. Or I was assistant choreographer for a production of Hairspray at the Dallas Theater Center. And then I got a master's in dance, and I went on to become a dance educator, and I adjuncted all over the Dallas area. And once dancers learned my background, my story, they really wanted to come to me for career support, for help, like answering career questions. How can I go to LA and start my career? What do you think I should be doing right now? And my heart really, really went out to them, because when I started my career, I didn't have any direction either. And so I started blogging, and I built the workingdancer.com, and as a career hub for dancers to help them learn all the things I wish I had known. It was really a love letter to my younger self. And so things like how to do my taxes and how to make my career sustainable, how to budget, should I turn down jobs, how to audition well, how do I network as a dancer, all of those things I really put into the Working Dancer, and build a community of dancers who were learning how to build sustainable careers the way that I had. And it was also that body of work that led to me writing for Dance Magazine and Point and Dance Teacher and Dance Business Weekly. And so at this point, I've contributed at least like over 100 career and business focused articles to publications like those. And I've gone on to continue that work in career support and career development. At a certain point during my dance career, I felt like I had evolved. It was time for me to do something different. And that really caught me off guard, to be honest. And so I moved on from dance and had an identity crisis, and I had to figure out what was next for me. And what was next for me was the thing that was there all along. And that was to help other people with their careers, to help other people tell their story so they can advance their careers and love their work like I've loved mine. So I took a role as a career coach at an ed tech organization. And for the next 5.5 years, I had a corporate career that I absolutely loved as well. And so I went from coaching. Within 5.5 years, I had about 6 promotions, and I ended my corporate career as a VP of programs. And in that time, I've done every type of role under the sun. And so that was developing curriculum or leading workshops and career fairs and teams who are building content for folks all over the world to develop their careers. And it got to a point where I was ready to branch back out on my own. And so now I have my own career programs and consulting company called Career Steward, where we help professionals live their purpose and love their work. And I'm really, really excited because I get to continue helping people tell their stories. And so I help creatives and mission-driven organizations to tell stories and convey messages that help them win jobs and clients. And I'm excited to be talking about that here with you today.
Shaté basically said, I got a whole book of work, baby. I have done. That's all she said, because Shaté, she's so much. Y'all heard all that? Y'all heard all that in 7 to 8 minutes. I mean, she just breezed through it, but it is testament to a very fast track and resilient path. And I have to honor you and give you roses in that. I mean, I tell people all the time, when you guys come and tell me these things, I'm fresh ears. They just glazing across, and I'm like, what? That's amazing. You've done so many things, and I'm incredibly proud of you. But one of the things that stood out, you talked about kind of being for dance in 2 places that were kind of hard. The first one that stood out was like, okay, parents don't understand this dance thing, so you're going to have to do something else. Number one, how and why did you choose psychology? Because I'm trying to figure out where that bridge came. So you got to break that down. And then the part of the hard in dance was like, okay, I've been dancing all this time, but now it's some time for something else. So those were the 2 kind of hard places for dance. I want you us to kind of walk through those feelings again. But first, tell us, where did the psychology come from?
That's a really good question. Not a question that a lot of people ask. So here's the story. My parents said, go to college, don't choose dance as a major. And I'm over here like, I never grew up feeling like, oh, I want to be this when I grow up. In my defense, I didn't see a picture of any type of work that I really would love. And also in my defense, the type of work that I've been able to do, it wasn't really exposure of that kind of work. Content creation, that kind of stuff wasn't a thing, in the 90s. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I'm just doing what I enjoy. So I got to college and was like, okay, what am I going to do? What will I major in? At one point, I thought it was math because I love solving problems. And so I was like, okay. But then that didn't feel right because, I was like, I don't like geometry and stuff like that. And so then my mom was like, well, why don't you be a doctor? It sounded good, felt prestigious, a stable job, I guess. And so I've always been a really good student. So I said, sure, I'll give it a try. And, going in as a freshman, it was like biology pre-med on the pre-med track was what most folks were doing then. And I will also say that at the time, like independent studies, interdisciplinary, kind of majors weren't really like popular. So you kind of just chose what they had available. I started taking biology and didn't like it. Like, and I started looking at what all I would have to take. Like, I have to take botany, and like, I don't want to do any of that. And so I was trying to find a major that would allow me to stay on this pre-med track, and it made a lot of sense. And psychology was the thing that really stood out as like, okay, if I could study people, if I could study their behavior. I love people. I love having conversations with people. So I really just took a chance on it without fully understanding what it would entail. And it was like, okay, I took one class. I'm like, oh, I like this class. I took another class, like, oh, I like this class. And so, 4 years later, I had stuck it out. But it was definitely me just trying to figure something out. It was externally led. It very much was not internally led.
Yeah, and I think so many of us, especially us of this time age, we kind of just did what we thought,
Yep.
was the thing. And it's funny because we get to a stage in our life and we're like, I don't even like that. Like, I don't want to do that. But we really didn't have the choice, I think, that the children have today to have alternative paths. So I had to ask you that. Now, Shaté, when I look at the forums and I research my guests, I do look around and they say certain things that I have to bring into the interview. Let's talk about this fear of being seen. Oh, you got to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. You talk about it because one of the things that you captured in that, you said that I probably would have done a lot more dance.
Yeah.
That fear of being seen wasn't there. You
yeah.
gotta walk me through it and talk about it.
I'm happy to talk about it because it's such an overcoming story. And let me know if we want to go back to the identity crisis part of the dance career thing, because I just realized I didn't touch on that. But the afraid of being seen, it's kind of interesting to say as someone who was a performer when your whole world is somehow on the stage, right? But it was afraid of being seen in a way that was like actually really seeing me. So everything that I do, I take the approach of me doing it in service to something. So even as a dancer, it was never really egocentric. A lot of folks, when they are performers, they're like, give me the solo, put me front and center, let me do that. And for me, I always took the position, the posture that I'm in service to this cause. I'm in service to this project. Even as a choreographer, like, okay, this show is going to become what it wants to become. Even in my corporate career, this project, this resource hub is going to become what it wants to become. Let me make sure I have the right people plugged into it. And then, and I'm going to be in service to what it wants to become. And so I always took that posture. Everything that I've done, I've always taken a very spiritual perspective. Even in grad school, for example, my graduate thesis research was on the intersection between dance, creativity, and spirituality. And so I was like, always like, what can I do? What am I bringing forth out of me? And it was like, I was afraid for that part to be seen. I was afraid of the real me to sort of be seen. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid that the real me wouldn't be good enough. I was afraid that the real me wouldn't measure up. And all of these things kind of kept me playing small, right? And so if I'm in a room full of folks who had done a lot of great things, I would be like, well, I haven't done as great things as them. I haven't booked Beyonce. I haven't done all of these things. And so I was constantly like minimizing myself and diminishing myself until one day, in the very recent past, I got to be honest and say this is after a whole lifetime of prayer, right, and worship, but then also years of therapy at this point. I had to come to a place where I learned to accept myself, and flaws and all. Like, I had to face myself, accept myself. And then once I got to that place, being seen didn't matter anymore because I didn't care what other people thought of me, because I liked what I saw. I liked who I am. And so that made a difference. I think my dance career could have been even more powerful maybe if I was in this space, but I think everything happens the way that it's supposed to. So I'm happy to finally be here now and make my way through it.
Y'all heard what she said. It's that self-acceptance piece, because that's a tricky situation. Because I said, if you're going to allow other people's like parameters of what's good and what's not good, they change all the time. You will always be trying to fall into these measures of people that are constantly changing. That's why that self-acceptance piece is so important. So when I saw that thing, and ties me back, I wrote a book called Seen and I Heard: The Invisible Impact of Black Women. There was definitely things with this scene that sits so heavily in our community. So part of this work, we know that it's HBCU, but it's also to her voice. It gives them that space and power to call that thing back. You understand? So that's
Mhm.
why it's so important that we have these conversations, because it's people that's going to be sitting right when they're listening and viewing this, it's in it in the present time. So they have to
Mhm.
see people in front of them that look like them that have worked through it, if that makes sense. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
okay, you got a whole lot working on the inside of you. You do. You really have a lot that's working on the inside of you, and I'm happy that you've come and shared your story. I want to this pivot again between the dance and then jumping into corporate and then entrepreneurship. That's a lot of pivoting.
Mhm.
Talk about that journey. Are there parts of you that miss that creative expression at times because you're kind of moved to corporate? I know you probably retired or danced at some point because it had been like 12 years or so. Is it part of you, or even now, I'm not sure if you're doing any type of dance yourself, that misses that creative art form through dance?
That's a really good question also. And yes, shout out to your book. And there's a lot to be said about, I think, even Black women and how we were raised and what it meant for kids to be seen and not heard, and to respect your like there's a lot to in our community, I think, that can be uncovered or discussed in terms of like us shrinking back and not accepting ourselves. But I digress. And so to answer the question about the pivots and the challenges there, when I decided to leave my dance career, the things that were stirring on the inside of me were, okay, I work really long days. I teach, across campuses all day. And then I'm in rehearsal probably like 6 to 11 at night. On the weekends, I'm probably traveling, adjudicating concerts, teaching at festivals. And I was like, I really don't want this lifestyle forever. I would like to have a family someday, and I would like to sit down somewhere. And, just kind of what was important to me was changing. And so I never got sick of dance. I will never get sick of dance. I'm literally always dancing voluntarily, whatever. But I've continued to take classes. I've learned how to Chicago step. Like I will never stop dancing. But to pursue it professionally is a completely different thing. And so I left that quite quickly, actually. I think within 2 weeks of feeling this kind of like I'm made for more, but I don't know what the more is feeling, I gave notice and was like, I'm not coming back next semester. And then had an identity crisis and was like, okay, if I'm not a dancer, who am I? What am I supposed to do every day? Am I supposed to leave the house and not be a dancer? It was a really, really tough time because I had to relearn myself. I had given myself the permission to evolve, but I didn't know who I was yet becoming. And so I always like to tell people, especially clients I'm working with, like, if you're in this middle place, you're not fully who you used to be, you're not fully who you're becoming yet, you got to have some patience and some trust in that middle part, because it's so uncomfortable. It's like really, really uncomfortable. So I just continued to work on the working dancer during that time for me. And so that is how it became clear that the career piece was the thing for me, because I was having so much joy doing that. I was continuing to write for these magazines. I'm podcasting myself and telling the stories of dancers who had built their careers. I'm still writing all of this content. I'm coaching at this point. And so it was like, oh, if I'm coaching, surely I'm still doing this. So when I entered into that corporate career, I went into that space intentionally, not hiding any parts of me. And I went in saying, hey, I'm a professional dancer. I was a professional dancer, while everyone else was like, my background's in HR and education or whatever the things were. I was like, I was a dancer and I helped the dancers in my world do X, Y, and Z. And I stood on that. And what I love to tell people is that I used like 95% of the skills from my dance career in everything that I do, even till this day. Maybe not the technique, but the resilience. Like, how many times did I have doors slammed in my face that I choke in auditions and and just like cry, leave the audition crying? Like, to be able to pick yourself up and keep going is so valuable, and it's something that not a lot of people have the tough skin for. So resilience. I know how to put up projects really quickly. I know how to be adaptable and flexible. I know like so many things. I know how to the chemistry of an ensemble and how that impacts the end product. And so that really helped me as a people leader and like building my teams that were high performing and really connected. Like, I literally used everything from my dance career, still do to this day. And so I don't think I've never not been creative. I think creativity is just a part of who I am, but the creativity will just show up differently. And so that means that instead of me creating movement and creating dances, I am now creating solutions. I'm designing jobs. I'm designing processes. I'm designing, right? So it just shows up differently. But to me, it still feels creative because I'm using my creativity to either solve a problem or manifest something. And so the same is true in the business that I have now. It's still me. And so I take me with me wherever I go. And so it's impossible for that stuff to kind of shine through in what I'm doing.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And I love that transfer of skills. And I can tell you that resilience, and if you've had to be in a place where that's the name of the game or you out of here, that sticks with you forever. And
Yep.
if you can develop that as a core skill, like you honestly can take it anywhere because you
Yep.
just kind of learn to roll with the punches. You learn to, kind of put that tough skin, that tough coat on and keep going. And that's kind of the stuff that can be make or break for many people in a variety of careers. Now, I want to talk about the career steward specifically because I want to make sure that we shine specific light on it in this episode. Can you just kind of tell us how your clients work with you? Are these one-on-one coaching calls, the group coaching? Is it like, 6 weeks, 6 months? Just give us a little bit about the structure and then kind of lean into maybe someone who maybe needs the services, but they don't know. So tell us what that catch is for them.
I love this question. So I would say probably two buckets of people that folks who come to me fall in. The first one is just like me, like I'm ready for more, but I don't know what that more is. Like I'm tired of hating my jobs. I'm tired of, being passed up for promotion. I'm tired of all of those things. And I need something different, but I just don't know what that different is. And I help them work through all of that. And then the other bucket of people are the people who actually secretly know what they want to do, but they are too afraid to do it. They haven't given themselves permission to do it. And so the outcome is still the same. I'm helping these folks live their purpose and love the work. But the way that I'm doing that is I'm helping them get clear on who they are. So their brand identity, their brand story, what they have to offer, either the job market or their consumer market. And then, helping them walk out with a strategic plan for that. It could last anywhere, depending on what the person's specific goals are, 3 months to a maximum of about 6 months. And it looks like early on in the process, we're doing one-on-one coaching. So only a couple of one-on-one sessions. So that's the moment where we're getting clear on what your alignment is, what your identity is. So we're looking at strengths assessments. We are looking at values reflections. We're taking a look at what you've done in the past, what you like, what you didn't like, why you didn't like those things or did. And then we're using all of that to really figure out who you are in a way that feels authentic to you and something that you're proud of. And then we work on telling that story. And I just love it. I just want more people to just feel lit up about the work that they do.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. And I tell people all the time, like I've been in business per se since 2022. I left corporate in 2021 and I started this thing. I've been a podcast host for, at the time we're recording this, we don't know when you'll see it, but I've been a podcast host for 32 days. And this is the first time in this space of entrepreneurship that's been 2.5 years change where it has felt like no work at all.
Wow.
I tell you guys, I'm serious. And I tell people about the revelation because it's so important that I share it, because they'll see these episodes and think that I've had all this prep time. I said, no, when you're on the call, and you're saying, I'm standing here now and I'm open to the possibilities for one. And then number two, I am speaking and declaring that the things that are in this earth for me, Shanasia, will attain. And finally, Shaté, I'm just telling you real talk. Get here now and have these beautiful conversations with women. I would have never, ever, ever had the opportunity had the platform not been started. I have been enriched by them. It's been reciprocal. Yeah. It hasn't been a one-sided thing. It's Shanasia show. It's this and that. I have literally gotten messages and nuggets that will take me for a lifetime from guests.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. And you are like absolutely a natural at it too.
I appreciate it. I have to share that. And I'll tell my guests, like, I don't take it lightly that you spend time with me. And I make it to a place to where we can have these conversations. They feel good. And we don't have to think twice about what we're doing and standing in this space. And that's what I want to give. So Shaté, I know for you, and I only go here when I'm led. And I'm so happy that you that you talked about both spirituality and dance. Spirituality, is one of those things that it's a part of my life. So if you just don't rock with that, I'm fine with it, okay? But I can never not be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that part has to go with me. Where did you kind of get the idea to bring those two together? And tell me really about your faith walk at this point. Because I know my faith walk, Shaté, specifically for this year, because so many things have changed me very quickly in terms of like family stuff, caregiving. I've had to really get aligned, girl. I've had to really get aligned with that faith. So tell me about that introduction quickly about bringing dance and spirituality together, because that stood out to me. And just talk about your place in your faith walk right now.
Baby, how much time do you have? Because this faith walk conversation gonna have me slain and in tears over here. So I will start with the easier question of the two in that creativity, dance, and spirituality intersection. The idea of like this thesis project I knew I was going to have to do. And so in grad school I got an MFA in dance. It is about researching some specific subject and then presenting a body of work around it. So you have to do a written piece, and then you actually had to produce a whole concert, a stage concert around the piece as well. And for me, the thing that kind of spirituality, like spiritual tones kept coming up, because I also, faith is a very central part of my life. I grew up in the church. I mean, mom's an elder and a minister. Like it's not ever been a part of my life. And so my connection to God is something I take very seriously, and it's something that's very important to me. And at the time, as I'm like finding myself more and more, it started to feel like my career was more than just career to me. It felt like purpose. And I wanted to explore that. Like, what does it mean to be doing this thing that I feel like I'm a vessel for or of? Like, I really feel like when I'm moving, when I'm performing, like I am literally, there's a zone that there's a connection to my higher power, and whatever comes out is not even of me. It's beyond me. It's bigger than me. And I feel that in everything that I do. So it's not just dance. It wasn't just because I was dancing. It was because I was allowing myself to be a vessel. And so that exploration was really about, what does it look like to be devoted to something, to be a disciple of something? How does it manifest? And it's so interesting that there was not a lot written about dance and spirituality at the time. And so a lot of my research really touched on creativity in general, and then like how art is healing, how people draw, paint, whatever, and those things somehow tap into other parts of us, and they like have the power to make us whole. And I thought that was a really beautiful part of the research. And yeah, it was just really about like me being a vessel and me being connected to a higher power through the thing that I was doing. Now, my faith walk, and you mentioned that like you've had to grow up a little bit, or if your faith or your walk is growing up this year. And I'll tell you, baby, 2024, my goodness, these past couple of years have grown me up in some really interesting ways. I do this thing every year where I choose one word for my intention instead of New Year's resolutions. And so some kind of way I felt the nudging to choose trust as my word for last year, to my mistake, because it was hard. It was a hard year. I spent last year learning all of the ways that I was not trusting myself and trusting God. And that was really interesting. So I started 2024 like, ooh, okay. So now I know that I'm trusting God and I'm trusting myself, and I'm gonna get the bag and it's gonna be good. And then this year, I was like, okay, I'm going to demonstrate that trust. And so I thought that demonstrating that trust meant that I was going to be learning how to be more courageous and like using my voice more. And that has happened. I have found my voice in a richer way. But the other thing that I was not expecting is that I learned that a demonstration of trust is surrender. Girl, do you know what that does to somebody who has control issues? Somebody with type A personality who likes to get stuff done, and I got to surrender. I got to take my hands off of stuff, and like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I got to trust God to work it out. Woo, child, that I am continuously walking that walk every day. And I think I have gotten to a place now in the past few weeks where I'm like, okay, I fully understand what this means. I am fully surrendering, and not because I am so noble and I have figured it out. I'm surrendering because I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of trying to do it my way. And so I haven't had a choice but to surrender. And so, yeah, my faith is everything. Because if I didn't have it, I don't think I would be sane. I wouldn't be here talking to you today coherently, to be honest.
Oh, Shaté, you know what? This first time you said vessel, being a vessel, I wrote it down because I have to drop that back in my spirit to keep saying it. I think that's a perfect way, a perfect conversation piece, right, with our Father. That's great. The other part is, I say, look at Shaté, not trying to be like me selecting the word. I selected relentless for this year. And when you say something like that, and you get like 50 roadblocks, you say, now, wait a minute. How I'm supposed to be relentless and I got 50 roadblocks? What's happening? Like, should I not have said it out my mouth? Or what? When I tell you 2024 came in swinging, I was just bobbing and weaving. I didn't know what.
Same.
I didn't understand. I said I didn't understand that, but when I tell you, I've had to a lot in the last, I would say 4 years, but specifically in the last 8 months.
Yep.
I say I know a different kind of faith. I know a different kind of view, a different kind of perspective, Shaté, because it has been that kind of year.
Yes,
so
listen.
I had to ask you that, girl, and I had to have. I say, let me have her say this. And when she said she chose the word, I say, I was like this. I laid back. I said, no, she didn't choose a word, and she gonna talk about some trust and type A and gotta do all this other stuff. But it be like that. It really does. And I think he brings those types of things. He knew that if I'm staying relentless, you know, I'm connected. Of course, there's some tests.
Listen, I just want to say that when you say the last 8 months, like 2024 has won, like they won. And so I'm grateful to be here. It's still counted in a number, but you got to be careful when you choose that word and when you're intentional. And when, you know, I think what it is, the other thing I've learned about trust is like, not only am I trusting God, what I was shown is that God trusts me, right? Because I'm with him, I'm walking with him. And so that is it's a powerful place to be, but it's scary and it's hard. And you know, those memes and jokes where they're like, you know, you're checking God's strong people's list, so you're not on it next year. I very much want to put in a request of like 2025 has got to be a soft life year because baby, yeah.
Now we need look, and then wait a minute, y'all. Shaté, y'all probably didn't catch this because we had to do like a second introduction today. Shaté talking about, oh, I'm originally from Houston, but you know, I live in Atlanta, but she in Houston right now, and we could have had the whole interview in person. We could have been touched and agreed for Soft Life 2025, and she just over there smiling. But we're not gonna charge. We're not gonna charge her. Hey, it's all here. But you know, Shaté, we cannot leave this place without you giving some contact information. We have to know where to find you, where to connect. Give us links to the podcast, whatever you feel that you need to share right here for connection points. Please let us know.
I appreciate this so much. So I would say I'm going to start with just my personal site because from there you can find everywhere that I am. So shatéhayes.com. And from that site, you can actually link to Career Steward. You can link to all of the things that I've ever written, the ones that are actually published and are behind a paywall. And I'm on Instagram at I am Shaté and LinkedIn Shaté L. Hayes. I will say Instagram is the same thing. Like if you click over there, you will be directed to my Career Steward page and find all the places where we are. I love to offer a resource. So if someone is trying to figure out how to live their purpose and love their work, they're not sure what to do first, I have a career match guide where I kind of walk through some of the reflection and assessment pieces that I was talking about before. And also I give a couple of other resources, like some ideas to work from home if it's flexibility that you're after, or if you just need to know that what situation you're in, it's time for you to move on from, I send those your way too. So you can find those at lightmycareermatch.com. That's lightmycareermatch.com, and I'll hook you up.
She gave y'all a lot, so make sure you go over there and get their free resource if you need it. So thank you for sharing all of the things. And Shaté, I have to give you this moment because this is important in our podcast where we cue over you for your final thoughts. I tell people if they see nothing of this interview, you give us some good parting words and something that really captures the essence of Shaté.
The essence of me. Ooh. I think the point of this conversation for me, I'll leave with this, is that you matter and what you do, like your work matters. There is data, there are stats that career dissatisfaction negatively impacts your health and negatively impacts your wealth. So that means if you are not enjoying what you do, if you hate your work, if you're just tolerating your work, if you have disdain for your boss, for the people you work with, that's impacting your life in ways that you might not even be aware of. So anxiety, depression, gut issues, you're not sleeping well, you're just not well in general in your health. And then people who love their work, they accumulate more wealth and they accumulate it faster. And so to be able to love your work, it is not a privilege. It is a right of yours. You are called to do something. You have gifts and talents on the inside of you that someone needs to experience, that someone needs to witness. And so I'd love for you to give yourself permission to live that life, to have that life. And I'm here rooting for you along the way.
You got to give yourself permission, and that is a very powerful thing to lead on. So, Shaté, I'm telling you right now, we're going to have to do a part 2. I don't know because I got like 10 more questions, but we got to give these people back their time. You know, I got a few, and I know that you will walk through them gracefully. You know, so I know that a part 2 will come. And I want to thank you for being here on the HBCU Her Voice podcast. It has been an absolute honor and privilege. All those hiccups that we had to get here, that was the enemy because he knew. So that's why I was so committed to make sure that we got it right just for this moment. So we honor you in this space. I give you roses and give you roses more abundantly. So everyone that's out here watching in the HBCU Her Voice podcast land, you know, I will never leave without telling you that I love you. Remember to let your voice shine because transformative things happen when you do. And we'll be back in really no time with another amazing woman. And we're out.